On May 8, 1735, Jonathan Edwards wrote an unpublished letter called A Faithful Narrative, giving an account of the awakenings that were happening in his hometown of Northampton, Connecticut. In this letter, Edwards gave an account of the spiritual revival that had been seen taking place not only in Northampton, but also in the surrounding towns. The awakenings began in Northampton in April 1734, after the death of a young man, which was also shortly followed by the death of a young mother. At the funeral of the young man, Edwards spoke from Psalm 90, verse 5 through 6, which compares the human life to grass that grows and is cut down. Edwards gave a testimony about the young woman in the faithful narrative, and he writes that she seemed to have a satisfying evidence of God's saving mercy, so that she died full of comfort and in a most earnest and moving manner, warning and counseling others. At this point, many of the young people in Northampton began to pay attention to their eternal state. The awakenings in Northampton were well on their way by the fall of 1734, and news of the awakenings were spreading to the surrounding towns. Edward gives testimony of the great awakenings, or of the awakenings in Sutherland, West Springfield, Old Springfield, Deerfield, and Northfield. Two amazing aspects about the awakenings is how quickly they seemed to change the lives of the people that were accepting Edward's message, and that they did not reach one particular demographic. Regarding the quickness of the work of the Holy Spirit, Edwards wrote, "Many seem to have been suddenly taken from a loose way of living and to be so changed as to become truly holy, spiritual, and heavenly persons." Regarding the demographic of people that were reached, Edwards wrote, "'Tis extraordinary upon the account of the universality of it in affecting all sorts, high and low, rich and poor, wise and unwise, old and young, vicious and moral." But as word spread about these revivals, not everyone was convinced of the authenticity of the reports that they were hearing. In May of 1735, curious and skeptical about the reports they were hearing, two Connecticut pastors, Hezekiah Lord and John Owen, traveled to Northampton to check it out for themselves. Both returned to their hometown of North Preston and Groton and began their own revivals. The first setback of the awakening happened on June 1st of 1735 when Edward's uncle Joseph Hawley brutally took his own life. Edwards referred to this event as Satan's rage amongst us. Although it was the first event to slow the awakening, it certainly did not stop it. Just over 6 years from the date of Joseph Hawley's death, Jonathan Edwards would go on to deliver the most famous sermon that was ever delivered on American soil, "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God." The result would be the spreading of the revival, which in some ways has continued on to this day through the evangelical church.